They said the truth would never come out. They believed the whispers would stay buried, that the quiet conversations happening in hallways and back offices would eventually fade. But tonight, everything changes. Because after months of tension, silence, and rumors swirling through the gospel community, Bishop J. Drew has finally stepped forward. And what he admitted about Bishop Hogan has sent shockwaves through churches, choirs, and leadership circles across the country. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. This wasn't a vague hint. This was a revelation that froze entire congregations in place. For weeks, anyone connected to the gospel world could feel something building beneath the surface. It was subtle at first, small comments, sudden shifts in tone, conversations that ended faster than they should have. But even the quietest observers knew something major was coming. And now that the truth has started to break through the silence, everything looks different. Before we get into the deeper layers, we need to understand how this all began quietly, almost invisibly, long before anyone expected Bishop J. Drew to speak. Long before any public statement, people close to Bishop Hogan started acting different. These weren't dramatic changes, but small cracks that appeared in places that used to be solid. Trusted supporters avoided simple questions. Leaders who normally defended Bishop Hogan without hesitation suddenly paused, choosing their words with unusual caution. Meetings that had been consistent for years were quietly canceled. Choir members mentioned last-minute changes that didn't make sense. Online discussions turned heated, then disappeared. Posts vanished, comments were locked, and normally vocal individuals stopped giving opinions altogether. Inside church communities, silence isn't just silence, it's a message, sometimes louder than any sermon. And around this time, people noticed a shift in Bishop J. Drew too. Usually calm, confident, and grounded, he became reserved, thoughtful, distracted in a way that suggested he was wrestling with something far heavier than day-to-day leadership. People wondered, what does he know? Is he holding something back? Is he waiting for the right moment to speak? It became clear that whatever this situation was, it wasn't small. This wasn't a minor misunderstanding. This was something that had been building for a long time, and the pressure was reaching a breaking point. The turning point didn't happen on stage. It didn't happen during a live. It happened behind a closed door, inside a private meeting most people didn't even know was scheduled. Leaders from multiple ministries gathered, expecting to discuss upcoming events and collaborative plans, but the atmosphere in the room was tense from the start. People who normally joked and greeted each other warmly sat stiff and quiet. Their expressions carried the weight of unspoken questions. Then Bishop J. Drew walked in. He wasn't angry, he wasn't emotional, but he carried the heaviness of someone who had reached the end of silence. Those in the room said they had never seen him look like that, calm, but deeply burdened. When he spoke, the room went still. He didn't accuse anyone, he didn't call out names with anger. He simply said, there are things that need to be addressed, things that can't stay buried anymore. That alone was enough to send a ripple across the room. Some leaders straightened up in disbelief. Others lowered their heads, as if bracing themselves. A few exchanged quick, nervous glances, because they already knew exactly what he was referring to. This wasn't about rumors anymore. This was confirmation. What Bishop J. Drew shared next stunned everyone. He explained that concerns about Bishop Hogan didn't appear overnight. They had been growing quietly for years, brought to him through private conversations, late-night calls, and testimonies from individuals who didn't feel safe speaking publicly. These weren't dramatic stories or exaggerated claims. They were consistent, detailed, and deeply troubling. Some described moments where boundaries were crossed. Others talked about decisions made in secrecy, bypassing leadership. Still others hinted that what was being whispered wasn't isolated. It was part of a larger, more complicated pattern. For a long time, leaders had been stuck in an impossible position. On one side, they wanted to protect the church, preserve unity, and avoid scandal. On the other, they knew ignoring these concerns was only making the situation worse. Bishop J. Drew admitted he had hoped the issue would resolve itself. He hoped Bishop Hogan would address certain behavior, or that someone else would step in before things escalated. But instead, the tension grew. More people came forward privately. More inconsistencies appeared. And eventually, staying silent became impossible. This was the moment when everyone in the room realized the whispers weren't random, they were connected. They formed a pattern, a story, a truth that had been growing stronger for months, maybe even years. Just when the room thought they had heard the most shocking part, Bishop J. Drew revealed something that changed everything. A recording had surfaced, not rumors, not someone's interpretation. A real, documented conversation involving Bishop Hogan. Leaders leaned in, some gasped, a few froze completely. This recording wasn't intended for Bishop J. Drew or church leadership. It wasn't part of a formal complaint. It came from someone who had carried the weight of this situation alone for too long, someone who finally reached a breaking point and believed the truth had to be revealed. The recording aligned perfectly with the concerns leaders had been whispering about in private. It confirmed details that many hoped were misunderstandings, and once a recording exists, there is no more speculation that it becomes reality. The room fell into a heavy silence as they processed what this meant for the church, for leadership, and for Bishop Hogan's future. From that moment on, everything changed, even though the public didn't know it yet. Behind the scenes, phones rang nonstop, emails flew back and forth, emergency meetings were called. Some leaders immediately distanced themselves from Bishop Hogan, fearing the fallout. Others insisted nothing should be done until they heard every detail, arguing for patience. But even the most loyal supporters couldn't deny the truth anymore. Meanwhile, church members began noticing strange shifts. Announcements were delayed. Schedules changed. People who used to appear together suddenly weren't seen in the same room. And online, the tension was impossible to hide. Cryptic posts appeared. Comments were turned off. Leaders who were normally outspoken suddenly avoided certain topics. People sensed something big was happening if they didn't yet know what it was. When the first hints of the truth hit social media, everything exploded. Some applauded Bishop J. Drew for finally stepping forward. They said it was brave, necessary, and long overdue. Others accused him of stirring up trouble or creating division, but the biggest reaction came from people realizing how long this had gone on in silence. Families started connecting dots. Volunteers recalled unusual decisions in odd moments. Longtime members remembered situations that suddenly made sense under this new light. This wasn't just a shock. It was a revelation that rewrote years of history. And as people shared their experiences privately, the story grew even deeper. Just when leadership thought the storm was leveling out, a new twist appeared. A late-night message was sent to a select group of leaders. Its contents remained private, but those who saw it said the information inside had the potential to change the entire narrative yet again. If true, it meant even more details had been hidden, and the situation could be bigger than anyone realized. Suddenly, one chilling question hovered over the entire community. What else is still buried? Once the news reached the broader community, the reaction spread fast. Some defended Bishop Hogan, insisting everyone makes mistakes. Others demanded transparency, accountability, and clarity. Many simply felt heartbroken and unsure how to process a revelation involving someone they trusted for years. But one thing was different now. This wasn't vague rumor anymore. This wasn't online speculation. This was confirmed by someone inside the leadership circle. A voice with credibility, a bishop respected across multiple ministries, a man who had nothing to gain from speaking out, but everything to lose by staying silent. And once he spoke, the truth had nowhere left to hide. This moment has left the gospel community shaken. It has forced people to confront the reality that even those in leadership face pressure, temptation, and decisions that carry weight far beyond the pulpit. Trust has been questioned, alliances have shifted, and the path forward will not be simple. But in a strange way, this moment has also opened the door for something the church rarely gets: real transparency, real accountability, real conversations about leadership, responsibility, and the importance of truth, because sometimes the truth doesn't break a community. Sometimes it cleans it.